You know, this H2S, I call it is a deadly monster actually, because mostly it is really hard to get second chance if someone is caught by H2S, because it's a extremely poisonous gas. And remember, it's heavier than air, like 20% heavier than air. And you will find mostly in the lower areas, like excavated area, like 1.2 meter, like 4 feet, any trench, or maybe some other like pipelines. You could have tanks, manholes, plenty of GOSP, like in Saudi Aramco, like gas oil separation plants, refineries even, or any area or any kind of space which is not designed for human occupancy. So mostly you will find H2S there. Of course, in this era, we have latest technologies, a kind of monitoring system is with us. So it's quite easy for us to identify, you know, either the H2S available, if it is available, at what level it is available. Like, is it below 10 ppm or above than 10 ppm? Or above than 100 ppm, or even above than 1000 ppm. Now we have a monitoring system, or a kind of the monitors available in the market. It could be fixed, it could be portable, it could be even a pocket kind of like we have T40 rattler mostly being used as an individual. So on the other side, we know the more H2S you will inhale, more oxygen will be finished within a body, and no oxygen is equal to no life. That is why this H2S proactively have to be tackled. That is why, like Saudi Aramco, even before allowing any kind of oil rig site or even a construction work, they always re-evaluate their geological reports, kind of laboratory reports of that particular area. Even they hired third parties to make sure they have clear idea within that land or where they have H2S and how much volume could be there. So proactively, they do a lot of studies. And no doubt, they are using latest technologies, and within Aramco IT divisions, they have complete data entries directly, through this technology. And that's why proactively they have idea either their project, which of the area of the project is going to be face H2S and how they're going to tackle it. And remember, if H2S is uncontrolled, even you will be bound to sometimes stop your project, because you can't kill your employees or the neighbor communities, or even I would say the animals or the birds, because life is life. It's not like only human life, even the wildlife, animals and all you have to consider. So this H2S, of course, have certain properties. It's very toxic, and most importantly is colorless. So you can consider it's kind of invisible enemy, like we have this coronavirus is biological invisible enemy. That is why we all are in trouble. It's really hard to catch that virus. It's really hard to scrape, because the penetration is very fast, because the enemy is invisible. So visible enemies, of course, we can tackle quite easily. Like if a chemical or a kind of a if H2S is in a liquid form, of course we can manage quite easily. We know H2S is in a bucket or in a container, so how to store it, how to issue, or how to, because byproduct also we use it. But on the other side, if it is like in the air, like it is heavier than air, now on the other side, if you don't have kind of a gas monitoring system in place, or you underestimate sometime H2S, then of course the consequences would be terrible. So let's start learning something more deeper about H2S. But before we move on, I need your participation with this question: the real root causes of H2S incidents and accidents. Why people are still dying because of H2S, even though the monitoring system is there, highly qualified professionals we are using for our projects, but still this monster is killing. And what are the real root causes? what is your opinion as per your experience? Why H2S is still killing people, I would appreciate your participation. You can just unmute your mic.
Because of carelessness of the people.
Okay, carelessness. Maybe they have
Yes,
T40
and the
rattler, but
second
didn't
is
turn on.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so carelessness.
And second is the sometimes have overconfidence. Other people's they're trying to be shortcuts. Like sometimes people's mind, that they are really also have the lack of knowledge
Absolutely
about
right.
the H2S.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
And they have no idea how this H2S can kill actually in seconds and
Yes.
minutes. They have no idea.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And the most important element, what I personally noted, if your sensor system or because you have some kind of fixed monitoring system, if that system is not effectively maintained or maybe for few minutes sometime, any sensor is disorder or needs some maintenance and you ignore it. And on the other side, people have tendency not to turn on T40 rattler because the fixed monitoring system is already in place. So this kind of, and sometimes the T40 rattler, I found they're not calibrated accurately, they're not telling the right readings actually. And sometimes the company, they're not aware how to calibrate even the T40 rattler or kind of other portable monitors. If they can't do internally, of course, some externally accredited laboratories are there, and all the monitoring equipment must be calibrated. So plenty of other reasons, I agree, carelessness, lack of knowledge, and sometime the judgment, like maybe you believe your monitor is telling the ppm is below 10 ppm, but might be that was the starting point and later on H2S going to be accelerated, and then because of so many other reasons, so of course it would be harder to get second chance actually. And a lot of incidents happen if you go back and research on, especially on YouTube, for the last 100 years, how many H2S terrible incidents happened and how many people are died, so you'll be shocked that a lot of incidents still happening, even though we are in a blessed era because the technology is there. We have different kind of monitors available, so we can easily identify proactively, what is the level of H2S in which area, especially in the confined spaces, because we know it is heavier than air, right? Any one of you familiar what is LEL of H2S? LEL of H2S, because every chemical or every gas have a particular LEL and UEL, like lower explosive limit and upper explosive limit.
Yes. And Lord, yes.
Okay, so what is LEL of
H2S is the
H2S?
colorless gas and LEL of H2S, it is
Okay.
more than 10, so it is. But we don't know the actual.
Just remember the LEL of H2S is 4.3%. 4.3%. And 1% is equal to 1000 ppm, and we are allowed to work only below 10 ppm. That means 0.001% of that level we are allowed to work. Otherwise, above than that, we have to get certain permissions, and SCAB and SABA need to be used. But remember, the LEL of H2S is 4.3%, the lower explosive limit, and the UEL is 46%. I repeat again, LEL is 4.3% of H2S, and UEL, upper explosive limit, is 46%. So in between, if that level would be there anywhere of H2S, more chances of explosion is there. That means this is explosive gas as well. And especially in the high hazardous industries like oil and gas, The biggest hazard is explosion, you know, because we are dealing with petrol, diesel, gas, and plenty of other toxic gases, and they are extremely flammable. Like H2S is extremely flammable gas, you know. So I hope it will give you an idea why these things are important to be familiar with. And most importantly, you know, at an initial level, might be you can feel some rotten egg smell, but later on, it will paralyze
You
your
can't
sense of
explain.
smell as well, because you can't smell
Yes.
anymore. And if you can't smell, you have no idea how much you inhaled actually.
Right.
And the more H2S inside, I mentioned earlier, no more oxygen in your body, and no oxygen is equal to no life, right? That is why the sudden deaths
Right.
are. The person would be unconscious, rescue operations will be delayed for a few minutes, and the person is no more. Especially if the ppm is 1000 ppm, like if 1% H2S is there, it is enough to kill a person immediately, you know. And remember, whenever we play with nature, because construction means we are playing first of all with the land, we are digging out, we are making trenches, we are making foundations. So what we are doing, we are using excavators, you know, even though excavation is another technical process and we must be familiar how to identify hazards and put some controls. But above than 1.2 meter, the moment you are digging out any trench or any kind of excavated area, it's already considered as a confined space, and confined space means a place which is not designed for human occupancy. So you can't stay there, you can't enter until you take some certain measures or kind of permit requirements to be fulfilled. So that is why it is considered, if you really want to be safe from H2S, be proactive. Be proactive rather than waiting for the incident and then you're gonna wake up and, you know, taking a lot of actions. And most importantly, I would mention here, this H2S is kind of a like soluble in water, and our blood is kind of a liquid, right? So that's why immediately it will mix with the blood and penetrate throughout the body and will finish what? The oxygen. And that is why people are dying immediately, you know. So in short, remember, it is odorless, toxic, flammable, colorless, heavier than air, and dissolved in liquid. These are some of the properties you need to remember.
Yes, sir.
Now, we already discussed this highly poisonous, highly toxic, flammable, and corrosive gas in high concentration, like H2S can kill within minutes. Remember that one. We have discussed it's a colorless, rotten egg smell is there, pulses your sense of smell immediately, flammability is there, especially producing sulfur dioxide when it burns and have blue flame, and explosive gas also. It's heavier than air, tend to settle in low-lying areas, and solubility, of course, is dissolves in water, oil, and well fluids. Let me give you a one practical example. You know, one of the company, they purchased some pipelines from China, okay?
Okay.
But the coating of the pipe was not as per some specific international standards. And now the pipes are dumped because they excavated the land and pipelines are installed. And later on, this pipeline were purchased for next 20 years. Let's take an example. Now, because of H2S and some other toxic gases, because it create rust, this H2S also create rust, corrosiveness, you know. That means it can kill to the metals as well. So the pipelines, what they purchased for next 20 years, demolished within 5 years because of this H2S and other toxic gases. Now the shareholders and the company owners, they just, shredded up and they denied to reinvest the money because they invested their capital for next 20 years. But because of not having this proactive safety system against this H2S, the shelf life was reduced 15 years actually. That means you have to reinvest that money before 15 years while you invested for 20 years. So it's a huge loss. And no shareholder or any kind of investor, they will not accept any excuses,
Okay.
That is why it is important even to secure our properties, kind of assets, Now, another element you can take in. Imagine you are digging out, like you have an oil rig site. And this oil rig site, unfortunately, while digging out, and of course, your intention is to get oil, gas, whatever your intention is, but the H2S became uncontrolled because of your mismanagement or because of your poor safety management system. You couldn't control it. Now this H2S with the wind speed going to the other sides or to the other cities or to the other communities, the neighboring community, I would say. Now, wherever this H2S will go, no doubt it is heavier than air, 20% heavier than air approximately, but it will go into the lower areas. Wherever it will find a way, definitely will store be there. And everybody don't have monitor like you, like T40 Rattler or portable monitors or others, especially once it is spread in the neighbor community actually. And that is why sometimes the whole city is in trouble, if H2S is uncontrolled or other toxic gases. And sometimes we have chemical industry and releasing certain toxic gases uncontrolled, and the whole city is in trouble. I hope you got the point. So yes, this H2S must be considered seriously, and there must be proactive prevention management system, I would say. Prevention management system against H2S must be there, not a reactive management system like H2S is there, then we're going to control. Before H2S, can do anything, you have to identify what level of volume you will find, at your project site. Proactively, you need to identify, right, rather than waiting the, right, and then you're going to think, okay, this is, we can use KABA, we can use SABA, we can inform our people, we can tell them the wind direction, we can tell them the muster point. All these things are important, of course, but I'm talking about prevention is better than cure, right? So proactively, we have to, right, work on H2S management, prevention management system, And this corrosiveness causes like kills to the metals as well. I gave you an example, practical example, and trust me, the investors were weeping because they invested money for 20 years. And the company leadership is saying, okay, no more pipes because it's all became rusty, corrosion is there because of poor coating actually. Now, mostly where we gonna find them? Natural gas processing plants, petroleum refineries, leather tanning, pulp mills, iron and steel mills, oil and gas, wells, sewage treatment, commercial laboratories, etc. Earlier I mentioned it's also having a rotten egg smell, a rotten egg gas smell, but still we will not rely on our nose.
Yes, sir.
We will not rely on our nose. Even the smallest amount in ppm is there. It's not like, okay, at one time rotten egg smell would be there, but later on, no guarantee that your sense of smell is working or not at a certain level. Now, hydrosulfuric acid and hydrogen sulfide, these are some of the other names of H2S. We measure H2S in ppm, parts per million, and in percentage, like 1% is equal to 10,000 ppm. 1% is equal to 10,000 ppm. Right. And 10,000 ppm, and we are not allowed to work above than 10 ppm, like below 10 ppm for 8 hours. Right. We are allowed to work. So just get this figure. 1% is equal to 10,000 ppm. So that means, imagine if only 1% H2S is there, it can kill everyone there, you know, if they are not having SCABA or SABA or some other, even EBA, I would say, emergency escape bottle, you know. So ppm is used when deal with the effects of H2S on common body, but remember the ideal H immediately dangerous to life or health is 1000 ppm. So not 1%, even less than 1%. That means 1000 ppm is enough to kill a person immediately. That is why they mention is ideal H, immediately dangerous to life or health. Okay, so explosive in the wide range of concentration like 46%, the upper explosive limit. Auto ignition temperature of H2S is 260 degrees. We should use extinguishing media like carbon dioxide or dry powder. Remember, it's toxic and different toxic levels are there, but paralyzes your breathing at a level of 1000 ppm and can kill in minutes. Yes, we require some special procedures for detection for escape equipment like SCABA, self-contained breathing apparatus, or toxic effects increase with concentration and time. Now, how it affects, you know, H2S enters the body through lungs, dissolves in blood. I already explained throughout the body by bloodstream. It affects breathing by causing the respiratory control center in the brain to shut down. So no more messages actually from the brain, you know. That's why respiration stops. And death occurs as oxygen in the blood is quickly used up, causing the heart to stop. So the more H2S inside, the more chances of the person to be died. So at the level of 1 ppm, we will have rotten egg smell, you know, at the level of 1 ppm. But 10 ppm is a TLV, threshold limit value for 8 hours, continuous work. But I, as a trainer, I always encourage to the companies, don't misjudge, you know, sometime might be it's a starting point, this 10 ppm. Yes, and later on, because the moment you started your project, some accumulative factors involved and it accelerated, you know. And you still thinking it's time to, that is why we need some alarm system as well, fixed alarm systems, you know, in line with our monitoring system. So that's why in Saudi Aramco, especially in the refineries or some other plants, they have a fixed alarm system, monitoring system along with the alarms, you know. So 20 ppm is ceiling exposure limit, like no worker should be exposed to 20 ppm at any time. At level of 100 ppm, remember sense of smell killed within 3 to 5 minutes. And some other symptoms are there like eyes, throat, skin irritation, headache, upset stomach, and even pulse rate increases. Now, 200 ppm kills sense of smell, eyes and throat burning. 500 ppm rapid unconsciousness, breathing stops, rescue required. And 1000 ppm immediate unconsciousness, even resuscitation required. So 1000 ppm is ideal H also, immediately dangerous to life or health. Yes, this is the detection system I mentioned earlier. We have 3 types of electronic H2S monitors. One is like T40 router, we call it personal H2S monitors, portable, and the fixed monitors. And fixed monitoring system must be attached with the alarm system as well. Okay, guys. So how are we gonna protect ourselves? Because after detection, of course, we require protection. How are we gonna protect ourselves? And the number one idea is have some prohibited areas to be identified, like all your confined spaces. Mentions, put some warning signs and posters, so let people be familiar. This area is prohibited or is a danger zone, especially for H2S. And then wind sock must be there to know about the wind direction. We must highlight the assembly point areas or kind of muster points. And muster point one is not enough. At site, minimum 2 muster points must be there, so people can easily reach to the muster point in case of emergency, as per the wind direction. Yes, trainings are important, but I would mention effective trainings are important. It's not like just formality and you just wrap up your training in 15 minutes and okay, it's done. Okay, you guys are educated, even you can learn in 5 minutes, but the point is your foundation managers, like your welders, your painters, the affected people who are going to work on certain projects, especially in the confined spaces, they must be trained fully. And of course, no smoking signs must also be there, and T40 individual protection. This is how we can protect from H2S. Yes, there are two types of alarm activations. The low alarm we have at 10 ppm and high level alarm 20 ppm and above. So people can easily understand. So there are three types of approved breathing apparatus for H2S protection, like self-contained breathing apparatus and supplied air breathing apparatus. Like if this self-contained breathing apparatus mostly we use for inspection or some kind of monitoring operations or even for rescue operations at certain level. But if we want to work a little bit continuously, not more than 2 hours, of course, continuously, but we can use supplied air breathing apparatus SABA. And yes, we can use long hoses and pipes, as part of the SABA system. We call it advanced air breathing apparatus system as well. And for emergency escape breathing apparatus, EBA can also be used. It should be part of your personal protective kit, actually. Emergency escape, lightweight and portable respiratory protective equipment. Provide 5, 10 or 50 minutes of air supply. So just you need to get out of the red zone area within 5, 10 or 15 minutes actually. Allow person to quickly escape from a toxic environment and consist of a positive pressure face piece hood attached to an emergency escape cylinder. And if you go to the oil rig sites or refineries or most of the Saudi Aramco areas, you will find it even displayed on different locations, like fire extinguishers, same like for first aid. You will find this also, especially even in the sleeping rooms, I would say. Remember, for protection, this is not acceptable, the beard and the mustache, because the moment you have face shield from the side, there could be a possibility of some gaps. So the toxic air can go into your lungs. That's why, as per the standard, it is not acceptable, especially for the rescue team. How are we going to escape, rescue, and recovery? Remember these 7 steps. What are these 7 steps? Evacuate, alarm, assess, protect, rescue, revive, and medical aid. But bear in mind, you will not do anything you are not authorized for, you are not trained for. I repeat again, you will not do any activity you are not authorized for and you are not trained for. Otherwise, you will fire back. Because the moment investigation will be done, it will surely be asked, are you trained for as a rescue? Then why you rescued? Why didn't you go to muster point? Are you trained as a first aider? No, no, I'm not trained. Then why you provided first aid even? Your job was, your biggest job was to ensure your safety. You must go to the muster point. And the rest of the teams are responsible, like we have ERP, emergency response teams are there. We have first aid team. We have even, some other teams like firefighters and all. So make sure they know their job and they can help in case of emergency instead of you are trying your level best. So don't be emotional, keep calm your nerves and have patience and go to the muster point. That is your biggest help for the company, even for yourself. So remember, you must have to be familiar about the escape routes and alarms. That is why we have evacuation maps. That is why we have different drills, evacuation drills. So in case of emergency, everybody knows where are the muster points and how they have to move on. And of course, practice makes a man perfect. It's not like, you have evacuation map, but never did any drill. You have firefighting team, you have rescue team, but no drills. And rescue, especially from the confined space, is one of the complicated and difficult activity, I would say, in our field. So wear respiratory protective equipment and check for wind direction. Go to safer area immediately. Remember, H2S is heavier than air, but I mentioned earlier, it is approximately 20% heavier than air. So cardiopulmonary resuscitation like CPR for anyone of unconscious employees must be done by the authorized first aiders. Even though I noted this American Heart Association in America, all 50 states, they have trained almost to all Americans and they have made them authorized, especially for 2 steps. Number 1 step is how to call 911 in case of emergency. Every American is authorized to call 911 in case of emergency. And the second step is push harder and faster in the middle of the chest until ambulance or until the aid is arrived. They have made authorized, but how to push harder and faster in the middle of the chest, and you need to keep this activity continued until ambulance or until authorities are came in. So by guiding these 2 steps, they are saving a lot of lives, in America, because if someone is suddenly became unconscious and nobody knows what to do, no doubt, even people are familiar how to call 911, but the point is the person required immediately CPR, because his breathing system is totally collapsed. So it's required CPR. That's why they trained almost all Americans for these 2 steps. And there are some techniques how to rescue, escape, rescue, and recovery. One picture is more than 1,000 words. But these are some steps like if you're alone, make sure first of all you have full set of PPs along with scuba, safety shoes, and full coverall. Grip the victim on the back, unzip overall like 15 to 20 centimeter. Firm grip of the collar, lift the semi-sitting head on forearms and drag first head. So even as an individual, you can play your role, but the rescues must be stronger than the other individuals actually. That's why mostly you will see in Saudi Aramco, the rescues normally they join gym and they do a lot of exercise just to stay strong, and to play their role more effectively. And there is another technique like 2-arm drag. And step 1 is grip the victim on the back, squat and lift to the semi-sitting, thigh knee support back or arm under armpit, or even cross arms and hold wrist and lift victim up and stand up and drag. And look at the picture, step number 1, step number 2, and of course you can easily drag up. We can have 2 rescue drag, one is equal to 11. If 2 rescues are there, it's more easier to rescue someone. to take him to the green zone area instead of keeping in red zone. And also you can save time actually, because every second is critical, especially for the unconscious people. So step one is victim on the back, unzip overall 15-20 centimeters, stand of each side, firm grip to the collar, lift to the semi-sitting, head on forearms, and drag head first. Another technique is there, how to lift, like, step one, look at the picture, and step two. So again, I would mention 1 is equal to 11. So the last module of this H2S training is effects on the equipment, H2S and equipment. Look at the condition. I gave you one example already. Because it's corrosive gas, it can kill to the metals. It can create pyrophoric iron sulfide. It can create a combustible dust layer, especially at the top of the pipe. So even a smallest metal part is, or even a key, by the maintenance technician. If it is fell down on the pipe and the area is already having some toxic fumes, flammable fumes, so even the smallest spark would be a horrible spark, I would say, and it will destroy the whole refinery, or because everywhere you have flammable atmosphere actually. Okay, guys, actually, there is some demonstration for practical exercise. I would appreciate if you can go to YouTube and find out some practical videos, or you can do internally, through your safety department, because online it's hard to complete that exercise. What we do is each individual have to wear SCBA in 30 seconds actually. 30 seconds you need to wear it and make sure uh, you take your time, and we evaluate also, and based on that we find out how much you are capable to complete this exercise. Otherwise, these are the steps just for added for your practical information. Like step one is put on the SCB on your shoulders like a backup, tighten all straps, turn the knob away from you until you hear a bell. This will turn on your scuba. Step 4 is put on the mask and tighten all the straps so air won't leak out your mask. Step 5 is attach your line to your mask and take a breath. If you can breathe, that means that you haven't turned the oxygen on. So these are some of the 5 steps you need to follow how to use SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus. I hope, guys, this topic have given you some insights how H2S could be terrible, especially when you are working in high hazardous industries or even in construction projects. You have to be careful, especially in the confined spaces, especially in the lower areas.
Marks and
Okay.
excavation there for showing the underground utilities.
Excellent, mashallah. So we need cable detectors, we need metal detectors. Okay.
Yes. Then we proceed for the permit. Should we have the pre-excavation checklist is signed by the authorized
mashallah. Pre-excavation checklist must also be there.
Yes. And then we will process for the permit. Permit should be there.
Okay.
And those are equipment we are starting before starting the machine excavation. We should have to be dig the trial dig to expose the cables or something. Is if there any underground utility, then we can continuously to the start excavation.
Okay, the depth is already defined 10 feet. Now imagine if we have 50,000 volts, power lines are there, overhead power lines or underground. So then what precautions we are going to ensure? I repeat again, the depth is already defined, like we have 10 feet deep. And now above, like 50,000 volts lines are nearby, is moving around. What precautions we are going to take, to keep our employees safe?
We should get the counter signature from the POD department.
Okay.
They should come and check the area condition, what is the requirements.
Okay.
If there is additional precautions, they should advise to the all of the teams as per the requirement of the Saudi Aramco CSM GI standard.
Okay.
And should we have the isolation first before we start the day?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So do we need to do any joint site inspection before even we start our project?
Yes, of course.
Okay. And again, if it is Saudi Aramco project, the HIP and ERP is also important.
Yes.
Along with, and imagine if Saudi Aramco, they don't give you any drawings, of that area of 1 kilometer. Then what would be your best strategy, especially to know about underground utilities or understanding your surroundings, your neighboring projects?
To do what the trial did, and then we will continues remove to the soil. Then again, 10 meters should have to be 1 meter trial deep. And then when that's what we did on the sides.
No, for one more question we can arise, because this is how we can learn from each other. Because depth is 10 feet. So are you going to use shoring, benching, shielding?
Yes,
or,
yes.
Sloping,
Yes, sir.
And these methods, based on what criteria you will apply? Like if you are using sloping and soil type is C, that means the least stable or the weakest soil, and you are going to use sloping method to keep your employees safe, not to cave in, not to create any mess up situation.
Yes.
Because 1 cubic meter of soil is equal to 500 kg almost.
Yes, sir.
So in such a scenario, which like sloping, imagine if your soil type C is there, what would be the sloping angle for soil type C for this particular project?
34 degrees, sir.
Excellent, mashallah. And if it is like soil type B, which is little bit stronger than C, of course, then what should be our sloping angle?
45 degrees, sir.
Excellent, mashallah. And now the next one is, if it is soil type A, which is again more stronger than B and C, what should be the angle of sloping?
53 degrees, sir.
53 degree. And if it is stable rock?
Stable rock is also 53 degrees, sir.
Okay.
Stable rock, no, 90
stable
degrees.
rock,
sir.
we can go
Sorry.
for 90 degree even.
90
but
degrees,
make
right,
sure,
sir. 90
yeah,
degrees.
make sure, stable rock means a stable rock.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Excellent, mashallah. Now, one more point we can discuss here. Imagine along with your excavated line, if another contractor have to do scaffolding. So how far from the edge of the excavation you will allow them to start erecting this scaffolding?
Scaffolding should be the deeper than 1.5.
Excellent. Okay. That means if depth is 10 feet, we can erect our scaffolding 15 feet away,
15
right?
feet, right?
Okay, brilliant, mashallah. Now let's take another example. You know, if we are going to operate some heavy equipments or going to park some heavy equipments, so how far from the edge of the excavation we have to allow them to park? You know, imagine it's a crane. It's a
It is
crane. It's
supposed
a very
to
heavy
be
equipment.
same. Yeah.
Okay. So depth is already
Yes.
there. Like we know is 10 feet. So how far we can allow them to park their crane, you know?
Is the more than 10 feet.
Excellent, mashallah. So that means if it is 20 feet deep, 20 feet away. If it is 10 feet, of course, more than 10 feet would be more. And these are
Yes,
minimum safety requirements. If you use more, of course, it
Yes,
will
sir.
be more better safety for your team members, you know. Now, if you are using ladders, I repeat again, if you are using
Yes.
ladders
Yeah.
in excavations, what should be the distance between two ladders?
7.5.
Excellent, mashallah. Excellent. And these are important informations, you know, which we must be familiar before, during, and after.
Right, sir.
And of course, PPs are important while our guys are working inside. And right after the project, we have to clear the site, make sure nothing is left behind, our tools, the persons, you know, the head count is done, no one is left behind, the area is neat and clean, no unnecessary items are there. And of course, you know, after the project, inspection is there, like we have PID or in case of Aramco, or customer have sometimes third-party inspectors, you know, so they can inspect the project, and we will also be coordinating for this activity. And if all goes well, the project is handed over successfully and executed with full of confidence, with zero accident, and all is well done, mashallah.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
guys, thank you very much. These were all 4 topics of the day. Even though you guys are experienced and you have some understanding, but still, I tried my level best to give some practical
Right.
insight instead of only theoretical part. Because after all, we have to be capable practically on the site. Theory, knowledge, everywhere is available, right? It's an information era. You can get information from OSHA website, from Google, from YouTube, but the practical experience, like you are experienced, mashallah. So you didn't write any book. The only experience you can share the moment we will be learning from each other, right?
Right, sir.
So that is unique, and every person, trust me or not, every person is unique, and there are libraries within themselves. Just you need to give them an opportunity to speak up, and this is how we learn from each other through our experiences. You know. And at the end, I would recommend, remember, the biggest room in the world is the room for further improvement. So never stop your learning, never stop your development. The moment you stop your learning or your training, that means you are stopping your development. So keep this momentum continues, especially after this training session. Like probably we'll complete this training in next few days, but the point is, make sure after this training you keep this learning momentum continuous, because every field is a sea, like a sea, you know. So it
Yes,
would
sir.
be a good start, inshallah. And secondly, I have a humble request.